Greetings YouTubers, welcome to Makeup Geek 1021. Today we will be going over the origins of one of my favorite X-Men villains, Mr. Sinister. If you enjoy this video or if you like what you see, then by all means subscribe to the channel if you are new. Now let's get into it. Nobody truly knows when Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister, was born, but what most can assume is that he is from the 19th century. From the time he becomes a college student and gains a scholarship to Oxford, Essex actually becomes obsessed with bloodlines, genetics, and in general mutants, believing mutants to be the next step towards evolution. Now, here's a hint at why Mr. Sinister might be obsessed with Scott Summers and Jean Grey. During his early days of calling himself Mr. Sinister, Essex defeats a couple known as Cyclops and Phoenix, and he begins to experiment on them, and that is where he could have possibly began following the Summers Grey family bloodlines, and this is mostly because mutants within the Summers family bloodline, their power is the only thing that can cause Sinister bodily harm, and he additionally has a past connection with Scott Summers' great-great-grandfather, Daniel Summers, and Mr. Sinister's powers are additionally enhanced by Apocalypse. I get it. Quite confusing and a bit of a crazy history, but you can blame Chris Claremont for coming up with this backstory. Over his years, Mr. Sinister has worked with the Nazis, and that was where he met a young Magneto, who at the time went by the name of Max Eisenhard before changing his name to Eric Lancher. Sinister goes on to be a teacher at Oxford, and he becomes Charles Xavier's genetics professor. Sinister stages the plane crash that supposedly kills Scott Summers' parents due to Sinister's obsession with Scott, and he poses as the specialist who actually gives Scott his ruby quartz glasses. He clones Jean Grey into Madeline Pryor, who becomes the mother of Nathan Summers, and very recently in the comics, with Scott being killed by the Terrigen Mists thanks to those Inhumans, Sinister clones Scott in the form of a mutant Inhuman half-breed named Teen Cyclops. Now, this is just an abridged version of this guy's origin, because Sinister has got a crazy long history, and if I were to go over the whole thing cover to cover, we'll be looking at a video that's probably a full hour long. Mr. Sinister has been teased throughout X-Men films like Deadpool 2, Logan, and X-Men Apocalypse, and he's definitely the character everyone wants for the Dark Phoenix movie.